Hey, what's up? This is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling for Platinum versus AEW Dynamite. This was the June 10th, 2020 show, which I believe is one of the most solidly done shows that they have done. That doesn't sound like high praise, but it really is because it didn't necessarily have a lot of spectacular stuff happen in ring, but it was the most sort of cohesive, put together show that they've done in a long time. And I'm talking about all of the elements, production elements, and all the rest of it. They've also cut way down on the sort of sloppy wrestling spots that have really plagued AEW over the course of a few Dynamite shows, a few dark shows, and the last pay-per-view or two. They're really beginning to cut down on that stuff. Which is not to say that they don't have spectacular moments. Now they just feel more refined, and they really get more of a maximum effect kind of thing. We open with a little interaction between FTR versus Blade and Butcher that took place in the lobby of that building where FTR was doing an interview with Tony Schiavone, so we've set up that match. The various interactions between Orange Cassidy and the Inner Circle, most notably when Orange Cassidy hands in pockets evaded the Inner Circle, and then Cody going through hell and high water and a lot of blood to win his match against Jungle Boy. So we've set up a lot of the big things for today. We open with that opening again, the open of the Dynamite show. I just think it's really great. It's colorful, it's spectacular, it looks big league. We open with Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur, who are going to be our commentators for tonight. We're going to have a TNT title defense between Cody and Mark Quinn of the Private Party. Now, I haven't been the easiest on the Private Party. I find their tag matches to sort of delve into this sort of like sloppy wrestling and stuff where when one domino doesn't fall correctly, the rest of it falls apart. But I am interested in seeing what Cody and he will do together in a singles match. Because if you could refine what is great about the individual Private Party members, I think you can have some really spectacular stuff. And we'll see. But we got Moxley and Brian Cage coming up at Fighter Fest, so we're going to have an update about that, apparently. We're going to have, for matches, we're going to have Colt Cabana against Sammy Guevara, which I'm looking forward to very much. We have the Inner Circle against Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. We've got Sheeta and Statlander against Penelope Ford and Nyla Rose in a tag match. And of course, Butcher and Blade versus FTR. Yeah. So, and then Jericho's coming to commentary, which is a lot of people. But perhaps he won't be there the whole time. But Jericho to commentary is happening. So we open right off the bat, and this is something that AEW Dynamite has done a lot lately, which is they open with a really great match. It's an old school booking technique. By the way, I believe we only have, let me take a quick look at my notes. We only have 5 matches for 2 hours, which feels very, very, very right. Again, Raw at 3 hours, and I know this has been said by many people at many times, it's just a slog. It's just really tough to get through. Whereas this just feels like a 2 hours. This show in particular for Dynamite just feels like 2 hours that move really, really quickly. Butcher and Blade against FTR. What's FTR's entrance going to be? Butcher and Blade have their routine, right? Where Blade is there and then Butcher is like stomping around him. Really, really great. FTR pulls up in a truck, so apparently that's going to be their thing, at least for these shows in this area. They're all in the... Again, a really great match, and I sort of got the pulse of AEW fans of what they thought of FTR. And, you know, some of them like, oh, we like the flippy stuff, but it's like, again... Good wrestling and storytelling has its place, and I think FTR is a great fit in AEW in that they'll be able to work with a lot of these teams, and the teams will be able to work with them, and it's just a whole another dimension to what they're doing. And the tag division, which people were complaining about not too long ago, nobody's complaining now. That's for sure. So they pull up in the truck. Great stuff in the beginning. I love the moment where they're all in the ring, like after a couple of minutes, and they find themselves all in the ring, sort of standing off and facing off with each other. I thought it looked really cool. And again, small, subtle stuff. Butcher and Blade looked really great in this match. I thought the not so subtle storytelling of we're trying to avoid Butcher was a great thing. So instead of just we can demolish both of these guys, they did have like double team moves on Butcher and things like that. But for the most part, it was like isolating the smaller guy and avoiding the larger guy. Blade and Butcher certainly got their stuff in and looked great. The match was physical. It felt very real. It worked incredibly effectively. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a WWE tag match that had this kind of really great vibe about it, and I'm not sure I can think of one in the recent past. They win with the stuffed pile driver, FTR does, and it just looks really great. And so now they're going to interview FTR afterwards, and this is a segment I thought that shined. So they're interviewing FTR, and they're beginning to kind of talk their stuff, and you're sort of settled in as an audience member of, oh, okay, this is what FTR is about. And then right then the Bucks show up. And the Bucks cut a very arrogant sounding promo of like, oh, we didn't introduce ourselves, so let us introduce ourselves. And it's like we're the ones who've been carrying tag team wrestling. I mean, Matt just like puts it right in their face and basically declares that they, the Young Bucks, are the best. And then they have a standoff, and you're like, well, what's going to happen here? Is it going to get physical? And then right then, Kip and Havoc attack. And I was actually caught off guard on this. And Butcher and Blade come in and make their presence felt. And then Kenny Omega and Paige show up, and everybody's jaw-jacking each other, and everybody's squared off. And in a not-so-subtle way, and in wrestling it pays to be not so subtle, we understand that look at all of these tag teams that are in the mix. Really great stuff. Really, really, really good. We have an interview with the Natural Nightmares where Allie is wearing the same jackets that they're wearing, and Brandy calls that into question. They're doing a number of things with this bit. There's the obvious thing of Allie is kind of seducing QT and making him into somebody he wasn't previously, and is kind of pulling him perhaps to the dark side and teasing a split in the team. Then there's this notion that they are a great tag team and they're the number 2 contenders and they're going to get a shot at Omega and Paige. So we get that information across. But we're also doing this tease of Brandy versus Allie, which I think is very smart. It's, 2 gorgeous women that it would certainly be a novelty match of significance. And when I say novelty match, I don't mean to demean it as it won't be a great wrestling athletic contest, but that's not the point, right? This is Sunshine Missy Hyatt stuff, and I think it's great. I think it's a nice curveball. So now we've got the tag match betwixt the ladies. We introduce them, Sheeta, Statlander, Penelope Ford, Nyla Rose. We go to commercial. The match itself is very good. Lately, the women's tag matches have had sloppy moments and parts that didn't look good. Of course, by the way, we have Britt Baker in the audience in her role model wheelchair with Rebel at her side. But the match is very good. We have a belt shot happens, and Penelope Ford gets the win with the Fisherman Suplex. Great, putting more people into play, putting more women into play for the women's title. Makes total sense to me. We have a bit with Tony Hawk, who's been showing up everywhere lately. I watch a show called Betty with one of my kids, and Tony Hawk showed up in that, and my kids sort of loosely know who Tony Hawk is. They do know that Tony Hawk equals skateboarding because of the constant references to Tony Hawk Pro Skater and stuff like that. So Tony Hawk's there with Darby, and they're going to hit this. They're going to hit this trick. They're going to hit this move off of the ladder where he's going to land on the skateboard. And so they show Darby Allin trying again and again and again and again, and finally he hits it and gives the thumbs up, and it's this great moment. Then we have again, it's just a nice little segment, a nice way of showing Darby without having him wrestle that makes him look like a star and someone to pay attention to. Just really great. One notable thing, though, that it made me think of is, man, besides the thing that Lance Archer had last week, the thing where he's beating the dude up in the field and Jake Roberts could barely control him, we haven't heard hide nor hair of Lance Archer, to the point where I was expecting him to come out at the very end against Cody. And I was like, surely he's going to come up, but he hasn't. So hopefully they got something in the mix for him soon. There is something to be said for you take a big loss, you kind of take them out of sight, out of mind for a little while, and you can bring them back with something big. But hopefully that doesn't go too long. It seems strange. And then we have a series of things about Britt Baker and how important she is and the great, hilarious training sequences. Again, Britt Baker, it's something that they started off that was really shaky when she got injured, and they didn't quite know what to do with it, and they had segments that didn't work, but now they're beginning to put together stuff that does. Number 3 match, Inner Circle versus Orange Cassidy, and with best friends, Trent and Chuck. The interplay between Jake Hager and Orange, when the brawling starts right away, and Jake Hager has obviously picked Orange Cassidy to sort of beat up and isolate. So Orange Cassidy never really got off the schneid to do Orange Cassidy stuff. I think it's smart. I think it's smart that you can't always just have Orange Cassidy go through his greatest hits. That they got to tease you to make you want to see it. I see you. I see what you're doing. I think it's very smart. We flash over during the match to things like Allie and QT interacting. And again, I think it's really smart. If you've got all these wrestlers out here watching, why not pan to them? Why not show them? When they show Jake Roberts and his reaction to FTR and stuff like that, I think that stuff is really smart to do. Orange, after taking a hellacious beating, counters with that sort of like octopus pin thing that he does that, he used to do in the indies all the time, and he gets the win. He gets the win, but immediately Jericho comes out with the bat. They lay everybody out, and Orange takes a shot to the head, and then they hit him with a bag of oranges again and again and again, and he's bleeding, and then Jericho cuts the promo over him. Again, Orange gets the win, but gets beat up in the process. And obviously this thing with Orange Cassidy versus the Inner Circle, perhaps Jericho, continues on. And Jericho being on commentary was really great for this because he was able to put on, yeah, but they didn't show the thing where Orange Cassidy walked through the shot of our promo that started all of this and blah, 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 blah. It's great. It's a thing that's been built over time. Very, very nice. We have a commercial where we talk about Fyter Fest, July 1st and 8th. Again, they're promoting, really good. I'll be interested to see if the numbers come up for Fyter Fest. I would hope that they would. We have an interview with Billy, and MJF interrupts, says some very disrespectful things about Billy, like how many are going to get your kids in and all this kind of stuff. Great stuff, great segments, sort of sets up more potential matches in the future, and they're doing it very effortlessly and with sort of an old school wrestling feel, which is weird to say about AEW, right? But they're doing it. Really good. 4th match, Sammy Guevara versus Colt Cabana. Great match, as you would expect between these guys. This match had a bit of that stipulation of the foregone conclusion. Obviously, I think Sammy Guevara is going to win. Colt Cabana has been losing to top-level guys lately in AEW. That seems to be his role. But they also have this teaser thing with him in the Dark Order. The match ends with Sammy Guevara finding a realistic, smart way of getting Colt Cabana into a torture rack. They did it via Colt mounting the ropes for a thing and Sammy slipping behind him and getting that torture rack. I really like this. I think AEW does have things to compensate for since their guys tend to be smaller. So when you have somebody larger, it would look ridiculous for the larger person to take power moves, unless you get into them in clever ways. But Sammy Guevara and Colt Cabana are certainly able to do that. and gets him in that torture rack, flips him into the knee into the face, gets the win. Dark Order comes out. Colt leaves, perhaps following them, but then they cut away, which I really liked. And then they move seamlessly into another segment where Matt Hardy comes to the ring, says that he respects Sammy. Interesting, and again, a carryover from what they did last week. AEW doing more and more things that string from show to show to show to show, and a lot of character development stuff, and a lot of showing guys in different angles and contexts. And speaking of which, we have a nice little thing with Joey Janela where he's drinking and fading, and they show the famous clip of him taking that crazy fall into the light tubes on the truck and all of this kind of stuff. And he's sort of lamenting the fact that maybe I'm just not getting over as much as I like. I'm just, maybe I'm already on the downward slope, that kind of idea. He's drinking. He goes outside, and then Sonny Kiss pulls up in an awesome car. They have an interaction. Sonny Kiss has him get in, and they drive off, and it says to be continued. I've always had the booking philosophy when I booked PCW. I would roughly I called it 1/3 new, 1/3 continuing, 1/3 ending. Meaning roughly I would split things up in like 1/3 of the things are done, like ends of feuds or blow off matches or just storylines that wrap up. 1/3 is introducing new material, and 1/3 of the show roughly is continuing things to pay off later. AEW is loosely following this formula, and it makes for a much better show. It makes you feel rewarded for continuing to watch the show. Again, AEW is not doing anything super spectacular that's going to get them hundreds of thousands or millions of new fans right away, but they're setting the foundation for greatness later on, something other companies could definitely learn from. We go to a commercial, and then we come back, and Colt Cabana's walking through the hallway. What's going on? And he knocks on Mr. Brody Lee's door and then goes inside. Continuing a thing. Really, really good. We got Alex Marvez, who we usually only see about once per Dynamite show, which I think is good, and it's always an interview of significance. Great way to use Alex. And it's Jon Moxley, and he's really upset, and he's talking about Brian Cage, and then Taz comes out. Again, this segment absolutely worked. Taz comes out, and he's like, you're chirping, after Moxley puts him over as a great trash talker. Taz comes out, gets in Mox's face, but it's just a distraction, and Brian Cage lays him out, bashes him all over this car, throws him into the windshield. Looked spectacular. I had been admiring the fact that they stopped Brian Cage and Jon Moxley from touching each other in the build-up to their match. But boy, if you're going to have one touch the other, this is a great way to do it. And again, AEW just feels very big time. They're willing to do things like, we're going to do this little stunt of Cody driving up with his truck and running it into stuff. They're doing stuff, but they're not overdoing it a la WCW. They're doing it, and it has a discernible effect, and it serves to make them look like a big-time show. Nobody calls AEW a glorified indie, for example, because they've successfully shed that label before it could get put on them. And that's something that you could say, and you could accuse, let's say, Ring of Honor of, or Impact, that at times it feels like a glorified indie, but nobody says that about AEW. And it's things like this that help. And it's not just the spending of the money of bashing up the car, don't get me wrong. It's the professional way they're presenting it and the effects that it's having. We get Marquez coming to the ring with his partner, of course, and Matt Hardy. Very interesting. And then we get Cody to the ring with Arn Anderson. And again, just the little interplays between Arn and Cody really work for me. And we go to a commercial, but we split screen it. Again, showing how special this main event is, that they're going to split screen it. AEW tries things, and then they sometimes stop doing certain things that they feel aren't working. Like they used to split screen everything. They had an episode or two where they did that, but then they found that they didn't need to do that, but they're saving it for this main event, which I think works really well. A lot has been said, and a lot of videos have been put up about that corkscrew DDT thing that Marquand does. It was great. It's every bit as great as you think it was. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. And again, when these guys in Private Party, and this match is what I was hoping it would be, which is Cody and he working together and getting the best out of both of them, really. But Marquez, I now see the value. And I mean, he hit that 450 from the top rope to the outside on the ramp. Looked unbelievable. The finish where he's doing the shooting, but he kept selling the leg. A simple story, right? It's that ankle that got hurt previously. And then throughout the match, Cody was going after it. So the last time it was Cody who was busted open and Jungle Boy going ferociously after his cut, but it didn't make Jungle Boy a heel. And I thought it was great because it sort of set up this notion that, well, Marquez has this hurt ankle and Cody going after it doesn't make Cody a heel either. But anyway, the finish, Marquez goes for the shooting star. Cody catches him with the ankle lock, which looked phenomenal, and then puts it into that leg lock where he's using his feet as leverage to get it. And I was just like, God, I hope he taps out. This would be such a great finish. And he tapped out. He's really good. Again, Marquez loses nothing because he looked spectacular in defeat and had the cleanest match I've seen the Private Party guys been involved with. And, you know, the Matt Hardy association is very interesting, right? But then you had Jake Hager come out. And again, a great little move here where he chokes Arn immediately, which catches everybody by surprise. And then Cody comes over, sort of like, you know, just reacts. And Jake Hager catches him with the elbow and beats on him. And then it really gets out of hand as the Inner Circle, you know, so Private Party and Hardy come to the ring and knock him out from the ring, get Jake Hager out of there. But then, man, Inner Circle, Sammy fighting, like it's just a cluster. And so you have a bunch of very interesting people in the ring together, right? You got Cody, Private Party, and Hardy against 4 members of the Inner Circle. You got Sammy, you got Jake Hager, you got Santana, you got the tag team. Ortiz and Santana. Really, really great. Then they put over Fyter Fest yet again. And keep in mind, we're 3 or 4 weeks away from Fyter Fest, and they've been putting this thing over for weeks. It's promotion. It's great. Really good AEW Dynamite. Do I have notes for it? Sure. But I think it's definitely showing signs of being a show that's very well put together. Hopefully they keep this momentum going. And how is it that AEW Dynamite, to me, feels like the much better put together show that gets a lot more done than a 3-hour Raw? A 3-hour Raw. Anyway, this has been Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling. Have a great rest of the week.